Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of my podcast. Today's podcast is entitled Recommendations, and as usual, I will start this podcast off with a quote. Reading is essential for those who seek to rise above the ordinary. And that's the quote by Rohn. Today's podcast is just going to be on my recommendations. I know earlier in my podcast episodes, I made a recommendation for some books that have been very influential in my life, and I just want to share them with you guys. Maybe they would be something that would be motivational, inspirational in your life. One of the greater achievements that I pride myself on, being on the better side of 25, I'm 30 now, is my library. And yeah, I know that sounds kind of nerdy, but my library, I feel, is an accumulation of what I see as my growth or my attempt to grow. Obviously, there's a lot of books there that I haven't read yet, but there also are a lot of books that I have read. And like I said in other podcasts prior to this one, I'm in my life where I'm in a transition period where I'm trying to shift from acquiring knowledge, from acquisition to application. And a part of that application is going back, reading some of the books that I've already read, and then trying to make a daily effort, living intentionally, and trying to make a daily effort to make sure that I take steps and take strides to implement that in my daily basis. I wasn't even sure what books I recommended to you guys, but I know that I have mentioned several books throughout many of my various episodes of my podcast. So I'm going to talk about 3 books in specific that I'm going to recommend brand new for this episode. I know they're going to be brand new. I didn't cover them in any previous episodes. And then I'm also going to cover some of the other books that I've recommended that have been helpful in my life in other podcasts. So I can definitely tell a change in my life has been occurring since I've started reading. Like I've said in other podcasts, I've been shifting from a more external perspective to a more introspective perspective, meaning that instead of trying to find the answer outside of me, I try to look within myself, and trying to see the issues outside of me, I try to see the issue within myself. That's just the part of me trying to take complete ownership in my life and trying to recognize that the one constant in every situation is going to be me. So being aware of that fact, I try to make sure that I come as correct as possible into the situation, and I control what I can control. Everything outside of that is beyond my control. But if I come into the situation the correct way, it should go my way. And if it doesn't, I'll know how to adapt and to overcome and to achieve my desired result, my desired effect. In school, I read because I had to, in order to complete assignments, to do papers, and basically to get a good grade. But now I read because I understand that knowledge is power. And the true power in knowledge is not gaining the knowledge, but again, it's that application of the knowledge, switching from the acquisition to the application. Because you could have a ton of knowledge, you could have a ton of knowledge, but if you don't put that knowledge to use, it's pointless. Like, people are trying to solve all these problems in society. They're trying to fix themselves, trying to find out how to be successful. And all they got to do is step back and do their research. All we got to do is look in books and read and stand on the shoulders of giants. Like, there's nothing new that's occurred under the sun. There's somebody before us that has gone through what we've gone through, that has faced the barriers and the hurdles that we have yet to face, or that we're facing at this moment in time. All we have to do is go back and read. All we have to do is do our research in whatever form that may take in order to obtain the knowledge. And then once we obtain that knowledge, we apply that knowledge, and that should help us to become a better person. That should help us to be closer to the individual we need to be in order to accomplish and succeed in our goals. If you study history, all great men read. Reading is one of the ways that we can stand on the shoulders of giants. If you look at all, like, the Art of War, the 48 Laws of Power, I mean, there's tons and tons and tons of books out there that are great books for you to read. And the thing about books is that you can find a book basically on any topic that may come to mind. If you look at self-improvement, self-help, how to get confidence, how to build self-esteem, how to become a more powerful person, how to find the perfect woman, how to build characteristics that you're looking to develop and to build, how to become smarter. I mean, there's books on anything and everything. And as society has evolved, I feel like we've kind of gotten away from books, especially with society being in the digital the digital era, and everything being, accessible at the tips of our fingers. We've kind of strayed away from actually sitting down in peace and quiet and reading a book. I, for one, and I know a lot of other people like me, I'm one of those old-fashioned people that like the tactile sense of being able to sit down and actually touch a book and turn a page and make notes in the cracks and crevices of the book and stuff like that. I just like to do that. I know a lot of people don't like to do that. I know a lot of people just prefer to go on Google and or get a Nook and have a ton of books on Nook and then read it that way. I have a Nook myself, but I'm just saying, if I had to choose a way that I would like to get my information, it would be to read, because it's the whole experience about reading that's joyful to me. It's being, distracted or present in the moment, focused on that one thing, nothing else matters, and you're just there in a peace and quiet and calmness, obtaining knowledge, seeing ways to improve yourself, relating what information you're reading to your life and how you can properly apply it. And there's just something about that process that I like, more so than typing away on Google or being distracted and trying to find something on my cell phone or the various other ways that we can acquire knowledge. I prefer overwhelmingly to sit down with a book and just take my time and read the book. The easiest way to learn or begin is to read. To find a topic you're interested in is the easiest way to start reading. Just start reading any and every book that has something to do with what you love. Like, what really got me into reading was I like aviation. Everybody that's been following me for any point in time knows that I like aviation. So I found books about aviation. I would read on the principles of flight, the different styles of airplane, the different types of engine, the components of engines, how landing gear works, how push-pull systems works versus fly-by-wire systems. I would look up everything, and then the thing about aviation, which is similar to a lot of other things, is that aviation goes off into a lot of other things. So if you want to understand the airplane, there's some science that you're going to have to look into, like Bernoulli's principle. And you're going to have to understand how an engine works, how a vacuum works, how some of the different instruments work based on pressure and the atmosphere and stuff like that. And then even when you start reading more into aerospace and aviation, there's like the physiological component, the pilot, and you got to understand how G's work, or gravity plus or minus, when you do certain maneuver on a person's body, the effects that you can undergo doing that. And then that leads into another thing and another thing and another thing. And then soon you find yourself reading a book on physics or something that you didn't connect totally to this, but now because you started reading, you're now going down the rabbit hole and you're seeing how far the rabbit hole truly does go. And that's how I kind of started building my library. My library consists of, aviation books, science books, technology books, self-help books, historical books, books about organizations. Like my library, it consists of a lot of different things that just interest me in general, and things that I would like to pass to my friends, and information I like to share with family, loved ones, and even put out in my community if I even had the chance and opportunity to do that. It's just that, before I get to that point of sharing my books, which is something I don't do very much of, I try to impress upon the person the importance of reading. And not just reading just to read, just to say I read a book, but reading in hopes of obtaining some type of information that may make you walk away from that book as a better person. That when you put that book down, you're going to be like, man, I'm glad I read that book. You're ultimately going to be happy that that book was a part of your journey. And because that book was a part of your journey, now you're a better person for it. So the books that I recommended are books that I have read and found to be helpful in my life. Everyone walks a different life. Everyone has a different journey. So again, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, I'm just going to go over 3 books in particular. And then after I go over these 3 books, I'm going to reiterate or go over the other books that I have also mentioned in that one episode I mentioned earlier, and also throughout the duration of my podcast. So the first book is The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. Joseph Murphy was an Irish-born American author with a degree in psychology from the University of Southern California. In his book, The Power of the Subconscious Mind, he explains how we can access the untapped potential of our mind. By accessing our subconscious mind, we can make our lives better, more productive, make us happier, and get what we want ultimately. In my journey of self-improvement and self-development, I have found that the subconscious mind is a vastly untapped and underutilized aspect of our personality, our brains, our makeup. A lot of what we deal with is the external, the way we look, how we work out, stuff like that. A lot of people, and I say a lot of people not to be all inclusive, because there are some exceptions out there, but a lot of people don't focus on the internal. They don't focus on the spirit, about trying to control their ego and dampen its effect in our life, or the ability that's able to have free reign in our lives, and our subconscious. All of these components, our subconscious, our ego, and our spirits, most oftentimes are aspects of ourselves that we don't really give a lot of attention to. We think we do, but even in the facades that we put on to make it look like we do, we're really not doing the work that is really required in order for you to make change and to make progress. And this book is a great blueprint for how you can go about doing that. And it tells you about the power of the subconscious mind, and it links into like the laws and stuff that we talked about earlier, like the law of attraction and stuff like that. Like everything is related. And I basically stumbled upon that because I was reading a book that was totally unrelated, and then that book somehow came into the discussion, and I got that book, and I'm a better person for it. In saying that, I acquired the knowledge. Application is way harder than it sounds, because I have 30 years of building bad habits, and I've just really got hard on this journey, on this path at 25. So I'm now 5 years in this game of trying to improve the course of my journey through life, and it's really hard trying to combat 30 years of bad training and repetitively doing things that do not work for me but work against me. So I'm a work in progress. I say that to say that I'm human. I'm not perfect, and my goal is just to grow, just like yours, whoever's listening to this podcast. The next book that I got on the list is The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Robert Greene, born May 14, 1959, is an American author known for his 6 books on strategy, power, and seduction. He has written 6 international bestsellers: The 48 Laws of Power, The Art of Seduction, The 33 Strategies of War, The 50th Law with the rapper 50 Cent, Mastery, and The Laws of Human Nature. So the 48 Laws of Power is a compilation of strategies or characteristics of great men in history that have led those great men in history to success. The reason I like this book is because this book, it discusses dichotomies. And what I mean by that is the flip side of the coin. So it says, so one thing is like, you should always say less than necessary. Like you shouldn't, over talk, because if you do that, you may stumble and put a foot in your mouth, and then you make yourself look like a fool in front of others and stuff like that. But then on the contrary, it gives you the flip side of the coin, because there may be times when that law may not apply. There may be times when you need to explain, when you need to discuss, when you need to speak at length, because that will give you the respect and the credibility that may be required for that situation. So the reason I really like that book is because it gives the law, it gives an example of the law, who executed the law in the right way or maybe the wrong way, how it affected their position of their lives for the good or for the worse. And then it gives you the reversal of that law, the opposite end of that law, about how if it's not utilized in the right space and time or at the proper time, that it could be costly and it could have a negative impact on what you're trying to achieve. So the 48 Laws of Power is a great book. Again, it's a compilation, so it doesn't read like a story. The way that I utilize it is that every day I wake up and read. That's the book that I read, and I just read like one of the laws. Like today I'll read law number 21, or tomorrow I'll read law number 22. So I just wake up and read that as a supplement to another book that I'm already reading. So that's just how I read it. You can read it whatever you want to. It's your journey, it's your walk, but that's just how I do it. And lastly, it's Chicken Noodle Soup for the Soul by Jack Canfield. I have recommended a Jack Canfield book before, The Success Principles, and Chicken Noodle Soup, or I'm sorry, it's not even Chicken Noodle Soup, it's Chicken Soup for the Soul, is a book. Again, it's a compilation of various stories of individuals who have chosen positivity over negativity in their lives, regardless of their situation. This book is something that can give you hope. It can give you something to look out outside of yourself, because I know that when we're going through life, when we're going through, the daily monotony that is our lives, sometimes we can't see outside ourselves. We might think that our situation is horrible. How could anybody's situation be much worse than ours? And we don't take the time to seek that out because we're just bogged down, me. But when you read that book, Chicken Soup for the Soul, you see that there are people who've had a lot worse situations than you and chose to be positive throughout those situations. And because they chose to be positive, the effect that it had on their life was amazing. Like a lot of these stories are just awe-inspiring. Like when you read the book, you just don't want to put it down. And again, the way that I read the book is the same fashion that I read the 48 Laws of Power. Like when I was reading the book, I would read it in conjunction with another book. It wouldn't be the only book that I was reading at the time, but that again is how I operate. You don't have to operate that way. At the time, I needed a little bit of motivation. I still need motivation every now and then. I am driven. I am focused on my goal, and I am consciously and intently pursuing it. But every now and then I get demotivated. I get bogged down in the monotony of life. So this book was a great book to kind of pull me out of that dark space, because as we all know, life has ebbs and flows, and I was just in one of those ebbs, those low spots. So Chicken Soup for the Soul definitely helped pull me out of that, definitely helped put a lot in perspective, and helped me to get my focus back, helped me to get back on track and back going in the right direction. So as promised, I have 6 books here that I have also discussed throughout various episodes of my podcast. And when I made the podcast specifically for book recommendations, I believe that all of these, if not some of these, were on the book list on that first podcast. They're great books regardless. I just wanted to cover 3 new specific books in this podcast, but these next 6 books that I'm about to recommend are awesome books, and I would recommend that you take a chance to get them, take a chance to read them, however you intend to read books. If you intend to read them online, if you intend to read them in the library, however you intend to go about absorbing the information, I will highly recommend all of these books to you. And if you get a chance, please go out and get you a copy or ask a friend, whatever you got to do. But these books are definitely life-changing. The first book, I love. These first 2 books are awesome. I can't say enough about them. They're extremely awesome. The first book is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. I know that you've heard me talk about that book before. Ever since I read that book, I have been taking extreme ownership for everything. Even things that haven't been my fault, I try to see how I could have better taken responsibility for it and better handled it to make it go my way or make it have a different effect. I've had a lot of good success in my life because of it, and I would highly recommend it. The second book is Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Again, it's a very, very, very great book. David Goggins had a very hard life. He grew up like a lot of us, and he can relate, and a lot of us can relate to his story in one way or another. And it just shows that it doesn't matter what background you come from. If you just tough it out and find a way to make it through the adversity, if you really want what you're going for, then nothing can stop you. I mean, it's a great book. It's a great book. It was hard to put down. The third book is Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. I know I've talked about that. Just doing the hard things regardless of how you feel, doing the hard things first, just knocking them out and going after what you want. The next one is The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, do it. It's that simple. That's what the whole book talks about. In the first 5 seconds of something coming across your mind goes through a process of deciding whether you want to do it or whether you don't want to do it, or building up a rationale for not doing it, like fear or uneasiness, sadness, depression, whatever your mind is trying to make an excuse for at that time. In that first 5 seconds is when it's starting to build that rationale against making the move or against doing it. So the book basically talks about doing a 5-second countdown and then just jumping right into it, just doing it. And doing it repeatedly, building that habit, and then over time it becomes second nature. The next book is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Again, this is one of those books that help you work on the internal, that's very introspective, and helps you focus on being present and just working on yourself. It's an awesome book. Eckhart Tolle is an awesome individual. I follow a lot of his videos on YouTube, and he's just an awesome guy to listen to. And lastly, Emotional Intelligence by Gil Haas. It is extremely important to understand the emotional component of yourself. Like I've said in a lot of different podcasts, other people can't make us angry. It's the perspective that we put on a situation or incident that makes us feel a certain emotion towards what has happened. So the person hasn't made us feel the way we feel. We have made us feel the way we feel. And understanding those emotions and what they stem from and how you can treat them and just all the components surrounding emotional intelligence is what that book is about. And it's definitely helped me. Like I said, I'm human and I got, work to do. I definitely have strides to make, but I'm better than yesterday. I'm better than I was at 24. I'm better than I was at 25. 30 is just a new me. I'm a different individual. I don't look like how I used to look in the past. And I'm thankful for these books. I'm thankful for people put me on to other books and for pushing me just to get back in that grind for education, that want to read, that want to get better, that want to seek research and validation and my cause and what I'm doing and how to do it better and how to go about it different ways. Because I think I went through what a lot of people go through, is that when you get out of school, when you get out of college, when you get into the workforce and you kind of get a career, you develop on that path, it's kind of autopilot, and self-development or education kind of gets thrown by the wayside. It's, for some people, it's not pursued as heavily as it should be. So I'm just thankful for the individuals in my life that put me back on track, put me back in that path, and help me to go after what I want to obtain, that dream, that goal, that why that I have in my life, for why I do what I do, and why I try to impress upon people the importance of being introspective and improving themselves from the inside out. And I hope that I can be for you what those people were for me, and that I can give you some type of motivation to just get after it, day after day, and seek to be a better you.